Hey guys, welcome to another dehydration video. And doesn't this beef stroganoff look amazing? So here's the ingredient list. Feel free to pause this, take a screenshot and use it for shopping. So sadly, in order to make a dehydrated video, you have to actually make the meal first, which makes you super hungry, and then you want to eat most of it before you dehydrate it. So here's my list of ingredients, and there's my 2 packs of brown gravy mixed into the recommended amount of water. I have 1/3 pound of extra lean ground beef, 1 total pepper. I've used 3 colors, and pick the mushrooms of your choice, and about a 1/4 cup, maybe 1/3 cup. I have a tablespoon of fresh chopped garlic. I also put into the recipe some Dijon mustard, some Worcestershire sauce, and some powdered whole milk and powdered yogurt, which I have another video of to show you guys how to make if you don't already know or have a place to buy it. Okay, now we gotta fry up the ground beef, and one thing you gotta remember when you're dehydrating is you want to avoid as much oil as possible, because even if you put it in a vacuum seal bag with an oxygen absorber, the oil can go rancid, and then that's, your food will taste kind of okay, but you'll end up with, something you don't want on the side of the trail, and or a bad tummy, or even worse. So fry it up with as little as any moisture as you can. What I like to do is use some of my water for the noodles, and then I'll moisturize it, so to speak, with little ladles of water. And I will do that throughout the cooking process, using my sauce and a little bit of the water to keep it from burning. In fact, after the ground beef is done, here I even pour it into the boiling water, which you'll see shortly, so that I can remove absolutely as much grease as possible. So it's almost completed cooking, still like medium rare, and then I pour it into the boiling water, which is rapid boiling, and then I give it another couple minutes to cook at the boil, and giving it a chance to release as much grease and oil as possible. Okay, once that's just about ready to go, I want to make sure my pan is cleaned up, even residue oil in there. I know I like to deglaze pans when I'm cooking. However, for dehydrating, that's something that I can't do. I have to make sure all the oil is out. So now I'm just going to go ahead and salt my water for the noodles. This is your best chance to actually get some flavor into those noodles. So a little salt. And now I'm going to strain the ground beef. You don't want to be pouring that down the drain, because that's a bunch of oil that'll just clog up your drain. So I set that aside and I usually let it cool, and then I skim off the top of the oil before I pour the water down the sink. Okay, and with just a regular paper towel, I take one final dab, pressing on the ground beef, and just again, whatever last little bits of oil may be in there. It also makes it hydrate a lot nicer. And as far as timing goes, I like to get my noodles in now and get them a chance to be all finished up. So I use a half a bag here for 2 portions of my backpacking meals. So it's a 12-ounce bag, so I'll use about 6-7 ounces. Now I'll just remove the ground beef and start with the vegetables. Now with a medium-high heat, I add my onions, which aren't finely chopped, but they could be depending on whether you like them in your meals or not. I kind of like the big pieces of onion, so I tend to leave them a little bit bigger. So now I'm just gonna saute them. Now this is the other problem. You know, you can't use oil to help conduct the heat and keep your food from burning. So you have to swizzle it around and continue to add. And that's right, swizzle. That's my technical term. You have to add a little bit of water, and what I like to add is a tiny bit of my sauce mix, the brown gravy mix, and then it actually starts imparting flavor into the food while you're browning them. And here I am just adding tiny bits of my boiling water from my noodles just to help keep the moisture up in the vegetables so they're not burning. I will continue this until I feel the onions are as done as I'd like them to be, usually a translucent, and then I'll start with the other vegetables. Oh my gosh, it already smells so good. I add the mushrooms before the peppers just because they will impart more flavor with my brown gravy. I add a little bit of GSP, which is garlic, salt, and pepper powder. A couple sprinkles in there now, and a little more brown gravy. So the mushrooms I've chosen will actually impart a lot of the flavor of the gravy. And I put the peppers in there kind of last because I don't like them cooked very well. I just like them kind of cooked but not soft and mushy. So I leave them till the end. Okay, now the peppers are added. I put about a tablespoon of flour and then stir it up pretty well and get it all mixed up. I add a tiny bit more of my boiled water from the noodles, which is also basically a little extra starch, and then about 3/4 of what's remaining of my brown gravy mix and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And I let that simmer for a little bit. Ah yes, my secret ingredient, the French's Dijon mustard. It's a must. 1 to 1.5 tablespoons depending on how I'm feeling about it. Something I quite often add that I totally forgot on the recipe, but I'll put back in there, is about a tablespoon of ranch dressing. I don't know, it just adds a little cream, a little extra spice in there. It's kind of nice. And I get those noodles off, get them strained, get them ready to add back into the sauce. And of course, any good chef, you gotta taste it, make sure it's not missing anything. What's it missing? Ah yes, it's time for my whole milk, this powdered whole milk. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons depending on taste. And if you're lactose intolerant, you certainly could just add something else. I'm not sure, like a soy product. And there is the final sauteed beef stroganoff. It's a little lighter than most people's, but I just love the creaminess of it. Yum. And instead of serving it on top, because I'm dehydrating it, I mix the noodles right into the pan so that they all get well coated and ready to be put on my dehydration trays. But have another taste, of course. there was a little extra to serve up for dinner, so perfect. Now all I gotta do is spread out the remaining into two portions, and I do this while it's hot because as long as it's already hot, it'll start to dehydrate faster. So I get it onto the trays as quick as possible and get it into the dehydration system. And if you're using a round dehydrator, make sure that you rotate the trays frequently, maybe about every 45 minutes to an hour. I've upgraded to this back fan because I no longer have to rotate them, which is fantastic, and then I don't have some that are over dried and some that are kind of still raw. Okay, that's pretty much it. Loaded into the dehydrator. I just have to trim off this parchment paper. That's the other thing, is I don't use the trays. I use the parchment paper onto a rack. It just I don't know, it's a little nicer. And then halfway through, you can peel it off of the parchment paper and flip it over, and then that way you get a really thick dry. Okay, so here's it all finished after 8 hours. I had the dehydrator set at 145 degrees, and it turned out wonderfully. I know it looks kind of gross and stuff, but my goodness, when it's rehydrated, it is amazing. So I just break up all the pieces. It also allows me to make sure that it's actually fully dehydrated, because sometimes they will be stuck together somewhere and they'll be too thick of a clump. So I want to make sure the noodles will crack as if they were almost a raw noodle. And that's another thing people ask me, well, why would you cook and then dehydrate actual noodles? Well, they actually rehydrate a lot faster because they're already cooked. And when you're limited with the amount of fuel, when you're backpacking and hiking, you just want to boil the water and pour it into a bag and put your meal into a koozie. If you have to put it into the boiling for another 15 minutes, that's a lot of fuel that you can't really afford out there. Okay, so now I'm going to add these into my Ziploc bags for the meal, for the trail. I just have a couple quick things to add to it before I get ready to send it. Alright, now I'm just going to weigh it out and make sure I have equal portions. And then, of course, make sure that not one package has more ground beef and peppers than the other one. So I even them out a little bit. And once they're pretty darn close, I like to add some onions, crispy fried. You can buy them already freeze-dried instead of having to waste your time doing them. And they're so inexpensive. I think it's $2.50 for that thing. So why bother doing it? Then I add 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of powdered Greek yogurt that I make myself. I'll have the recipe available in the link. And some whole milk that you can buy from any of your local stores, 1 tablespoon. And then it's ready for packaging. So make sure to get your oxygen absorber in there, a little bit of extra salt, and you are good to go. And then, so when I rehydrate these, I add them, I'll put in just enough water, and I'm going to tell you, it's a guessing by golly because I don't always have the same amount of food. So it's just enough water to cover the product. And it has been about 350 to 400 milliliters of water on average. So then I'll seal these up, I'll put them into the cozy, and it's about 12 to 15 minutes, and it is ready to eat, and it is so fantastic. It's about 98% as good as it was when you made it the first day. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was pretty fast, and I hope you could follow along and get some good ideas. And thanks again for spending the time learning how to make some dehydrated meals. I mean, this whole meal I think cost me maybe $3. So anyway, enjoy, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott from Realistic Outdoors.